Okay. It's funny, I have been really, really nervous about this for quite some time. I don't know, I can get up here and talk about any of you. I mean, I know so many of you in the crowd, and I'm so thankful that you're here, and I can talk about you all day long, but talking about myself is just not something that I really love doing. I first want to thank Gundy, because really I wouldn't have done this had she not asked me, and I wouldn't really have done a lot of things if it hadn't been for her. So I just really want to give her a lot of credit, because in this year she's become, she's not only my partner, one of my very best friends, but she's like my soul sister, and I just love what we're doing here, and it just feels so right. So I just want to thank you for that. I called my husband right before all of you started showing up, and I was like, I am a bundle of nerves. And he said, Abby, just breathe. We need to be uncomfortable to grow, and you know that. And it's funny because that's a lot about what this show is about for me. I started the show, Gundy asked me about a year and a half ago, and it was about a year ago, my mom and I went to the botanical gardens, and it was in between seasons. So, and it was an overcast day like this, and I found there was things dying, and there were things just starting to bud, and I found so much beauty in the buds. And it's funny, no matter like what spiritual path you're on, if you believe in the universe, God, whatever it is, but it's a lot of times we get these messages or these signs and we don't even realize it until later. And if you read my artist statement, it's funny that I found such peace and solace in the buds, because it's like relationships in general. That saying goes, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I hold very dear to the relationships in my life, and I have a really hard time letting go, but sometimes they go away. And it's a really hard thing to understand. So I chose to focus on this show to move myself through some very painful things that have happened. And I couldn't be happier. And I asked 28 amazing women to collaborate with me. These relationships just, I couldn't say enough good things about these people, and the energy they brought into this room, and the fact that they stepped up to be a part of this show with me means more to me than I could even explain. And look at it. I mean, look at it. I asked each of them to tell me their favorite flower or fauna, and then I photographed it and I gave it to them, and I said, do whatever you want with it. And you can see each of them through all of this, and I'm really proud that they were part of this with me. I don't know, do you guys want to know technical stuff? Because that's just like a whole bunch of, I went to school for photography and fell in love with macro photography my very first year. I had a teacher who liked to think outside the box, and all the rest of the teachers were by the book. And I just fell in love with the fact that he pushed me, and fell in love with minimal depth of field, loved that things didn't have to be right in the middle of the frame. And I just kept going with it. And here I am now. And one of the lens that I used to do all of this is a lens I got my first year in school, and it's the only lens I use now. So I think there was maybe some more. Do you guys have any questions? Yes.
Are all of these images things you took at the botanical garden?
No, so about 50% of these are from the botanical gardens, and 50% of these, I would say it's half and half. A dear friend, Christy Metz, she's a floral designer here in Colorado Springs. She brings Gundy and I flowers every month, and I started photographing them. So I use all natural light. There's no digital manipulation. It's all through the lens. I put them on the computer to choose which ones that I want, and then I print them, which like a fine artist would call them giclées. They're printed archivally with archival inks, and I only print one of each. I don't do runs. So once one's gone, that's the only one that's made. I used to do the printing myself, and then I thought I would never do something like this, so I donated my printer to the Manitou Art Center. And then Gundy asked me, and I'm like, man, this costs a lot of money to do this. So I do not anymore. I actually, out of college, I worked at a photo lab called Accent Photo. A lot of you might remember that. And that's how I learned how to do fine art printing. I started a department there, the fine art department, and I actually, before ever owning a gallery, I would sit down with local artists and teach them how to promote their work, which is kind of what me and Gundy do now. And I would do giclées for them. I would reproduce their work and do giclées for them, and just fell in love with it. Yes.
What had you first get interested in photography?
Honestly, growing up, my dad carried a camera with him everywhere, and I was fascinated by it. And then I had my great aunt, who was a nun. She was a photographer, and me and her I just loved her. Her name was Sister Kenneth, and I was just fascinated by her. She had a dark room, all of the things, and I just think it was somehow in my blood to do photography. And my dad was never a great photographer, but he always had a camera, and I just, he's the one that really got me into it, honestly. Yes.
So what was your first camera?
A Nikon. It was a Nikon F100. Yeah, all manual. When I went to photography school, my dad said, you have to have an all manual camera. You have to learn all of these things. And it's funny because the technical aspect of photography, I think a lot of artists can relate to this, or maybe you enjoy it, like talking about what brushes you're using. But so many people ask me about f-stops and shutter speeds on First Friday, and I was like, can we just talk about like the beauty of photography? I don't even know what these flowers are. And so many people wanted to know what they are. And for me, I take pictures when I see something that interests me, I take pictures of it. I don't look up what it is. I want to keep going with my creativity. And I used to take pictures of classic cars when I first started photography. And that was the first question people asked me, well, what kind of car is that? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think about the picture? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I will be honest with you. I feel like a lot of us are guilty of this, moving so fast through life. But for some reason, nature always makes me stop. And seeing the subtleties in nature is just something that I've been drawn to. And I don't really have an answer to that. I see beyond the whole bouquet. Like I see what's inside of it instead of the whole bouquet as, as it's in its entirety. I don't know. I find beauty in the simplicity and the things that most people wouldn't take time to notice. So here's what I do. I don't use a tripod. I put each flower, if I'm doing it myself, I put it in a bud vase by itself. I don't do a whole bouquet. And I set my focus, and then I don't know how many of you are familiar with macro photography, but you can move in and out with your lens or with a tripod, but I use my body to move back and forth, and I just snap like crazy, and then I just see things through the lens, and I keep going through, and then I put them on my computer, and I go through everything that I took to see what I like the best. I say that photography is one of the most expensive arts to be in, especially like when I used to shoot film. You would take tons and tons of film, and you'd go in the dark room and you'd develop it, and then you'd look at all your negatives, and after like 5 rolls of film, you'd be lucky to get 2, and then maybe the better you maybe get lucky to get 4. And I remember my parents saying, this is the most expensive education, but it's expensive, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of patience, and you don't always get what you want. Really hard to do. I think working in a dark room is one of the most amazing things ever. And when I first got out of school, I started my business taking pictures of people and kids and weddings. And so many people had turned to digital, and I didn't want to, but customers were not patient. They'll be like, well, somebody else got it this fast. I'm like, I cannot keep up with this, because you develop it and you have to then go in and it's a lot. I made a dark room in my mom's laundry room when I moved out of school, and I just couldn't keep up with it. So mostly it was just people's demands. And then once I let go of that, I just got used to using the digital camera, and life, is just don't have a lot of time anymore. I miss it. Angela, my friend, has a dark room in her house, and she's the one that did the cyanotype on the dahlia, on the zinnia right here, and I just love what she does. I mean, all of her work is the old school processes, and I admire that, and I think it's wonderful. I've been working on different surfaces for years, and watercolor is what I set, that was like, this is it. I finally have figured it out. And I honestly thought that's what I was ordering when I ordered these, and I messed up. And they came, and I was like, well, this is kind of pretty. And I asked Gundy what she thought, and so I went with it. And so I've had a lot of people say that, like, I really do. I love the watercolor. When I first started doing photography, actually my first show I had, some of you have heard this story, but I love this story. Somebody was looking at one of my photos and they said, I wonder what kind of paintbrush she uses. The detail is just so amazing in these paintings. And my mom was standing next to them and she said, oh, sir, they're not paintings, they're photographs. And he said, ma'am, I'm an artist. These are paintings. And she said, well, sir, it's my daughter, and these are photographs. So I love the fact that there are people that think they're paintings. I don't know, painting is not something that I ever was really good at, and this was my medium. And I think that's also why I only do one of a kind, because I think it's just kind of nice just for people to know that this is the one you're getting, and that's the only one that's going to be made.
When you say watercolor, what do you mean on watercolor paper?
It is. It's a fine art watercolor rag paper. Yeah. These are on bamboo panels, but they're photographic paper. Just, yeah. So like these ones have the wood on the edges, and so I thought that's what I was getting when I ordered these, and that's not what I got, but it's okay. Yeah, I think it's amazing. This has been such a this show has been such a healing process to me in so many ways, and the more I talk to other artists about their work, I mean, many of the artist talks that we have, people share that. I know that some people might come in here and they just see flowers, but to me, it's just, there's so much more than just flowers.